November 29, 1944, south of Japan, 3:17 a.m. The Pacific Ocean is a black abyss, its surface a mirror under a moonless sky. A Titan glides through the darkness, 70,000 tons of steel, 872 feet long, the Shinano, the largest aircraft carrier ever built. Japan's Imperial Navy deems her unsinkable, a fortress of armor and ambition meant to resurrect a crumbling empire's pride. In the silent depths below, the USS Archerfish, a 1,500-ton Balao-class submarine, stalks its prey. Commander Joseph Enright, 34, grips the periscope, his pulse a steady drumbeat. 6 Mark 18 torpedoes are primed, their 500-pound warheads ready. In moments, a single command will rewrite naval history, proving that precision, patience, and stealth can topple even the mightiest giant. This is the story of how Shinano, Japan's last hope for naval supremacy, sank before firing a shot, a tale of hubris undone by a submarine's quiet resolve. Japan's desperate gambit. By late 1944, the Imperial Japanese Navy is a shadow of its former self. The Battle of Midway in June 1942 was a catastrophe. 4 aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, obliterated in a single day, gutting Japan's naval air arm. Defeats in the Philippines, Guadalcanal, and the Marianas followed, each eroding Japan's ability to project power. American B-29 superfortresses now bomb the homeland daily, their raids relentless, targeting cities and shipyards. Fuel shortages cripple operations, ships rust at anchor, planes sit grounded. Japan's admirals, desperate to reverse the tide, pin their hopes on a single vessel, Shinano. Laid down in May 1940 at Yokosuka Naval Arsenal as the 3rd Yamato-class battleship, Shinano was secretly converted into a support carrier after Midway's disaster. Her mission? To carry 120 aircraft, fuel, and repair equipment to sustain Japan's dwindling carrier fleet. Her specifications are staggering: 872 feet long, 119 feet wide, displacing 70,000 tons fully loaded. Her 13-inch armor belt, thicker than any carriers before or since, is designed to withstand a dozen torpedo hits. Her anti-aircraft suite, 16 5-inch guns, 145 25mm cannons, and 336 rocket launchers, promises to shred attackers. To the Navy, Shinano is more than a ship. She's a symbol of resilience, proof that Japanese engineering can still turn the war's tide. But hubris is welded into her frame. Shinano's construction is a desperate race against time. At Yokosuka, welders toil under blackout conditions, shielding their work from American reconnaissance planes. By November 1944, she is woefully incomplete. Hundreds of pipes remain unfinished, snaking through compartments without connections. Watertight doors, critical for containing flooding, are untested, their seals questionable. Bulkheads lack proper sealing, allowing water to flow freely. Ventilation systems are half-installed, pumps unreliable, intercoms non-existent. Her crew is a skeleton, 1,400 of a planned 2,400, a patchwork of raw recruits, yard workers, and mechanics still bolting equipment mid-voyage. Many have never sailed, some are civilians pressed into service. Yet Tokyo's orders are absolute: sail now. American PBY Catalinas and reconnaissance aircraft have photographed Yokosuka. Shinano risks destruction in dry dock. On November 28, 1944, at 6 p.m., she slips out of harbor under cover of darkness bound for Kure Naval Base, 400 miles south, to complete fitting out and receive her air wing. 3 destroyers, Isokaze, Hamikaze, and Yukikaze, escort her, but coordination is abysmal. The escorts lag a mile behind, their sonar operators untrained, their radios plagued by static. Shinano steams at 20 knots, zigzagging to evade detection, but her massive silhouette is a beacon in the night. She is the largest moving target in the Pacific, sailing into waters now dominated by the USS Navy's submarine fleet. The Hunter's Redemption. Aboard the USS Archerfish, Commander Joseph Enright burns for redemption. In 1943, commanding USS Dace, he hesitated to attack a major Japanese target, a caution that cost him his command and haunted his career. Reinstated in June 1944, he's determined to prove himself. Archerfish, a Baleo-class submarine, is a 311-foot Predator, armed with 10 torpedo tubes and 24 Mark 18 electric torpedoes, each packing 500 pounds of Torpex explosive, 20% more powerful than TNT. Her crew of 81 is battle-hardened, trained to operate her cutting-edge SJ radar and TDC, Torpedo Data Computer. Enright, lean and intense, drives them with quiet focus, his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. At 8 p.m., Archerfish's radar pings a contact 20 miles south of Tokyo Bay, near the Inubosaki Lighthouse. It's massive, moving at 20 knots, zigzagging erratically. Enright surfaces to periscope depth, the sub's diesel engines a low hum. Through the scope, he sees a silhouette unlike any other, too vast for a cruiser, too swift for a transport. "It's a carrier," he says, voice low but certain. No intelligence reports mention a ship this size. Shinano is a ghost, her existence a closely guarded secret, known only to Japan's highest command. Enright radios Pearl Harbor for confirmation, but the response is silence. Fleet intelligence has no record of such a vessel. The decision falls to him. Shadow the target. For 6 grueling hours, Archerfish stalks Shinano. Enright plots her zigzags with a stopwatch, calculating speed and angles to close the gap. The sub's air grows thick with diesel fumes, sweat, and tension. In the cramped control room, Torpedo Man's first-class Robert Klein, 26, checks the torpedo tubes, ensuring the Mark 18s are primed. Sonar man James Lanier, 22, tracks the escort's erratic pings, their Type 93 sonar outdated and poorly manned. Enright raises the periscope for brief glimpses, 10 seconds at a time, risking detection by Japanese lookouts. Shinano's silhouette looms larger, her 119-foot beam dwarfing her destroyers, which weave sloppily a mile astern. At 2:30 a.m., Enright senses an opening. Shinano's next turn will expose her starboard side. He waits, patient as a predator. At 3 a.m., Shinano swings, her 872-foot hull broadside in the dim starlight. Standby tubes 1 through 6, Enright orders. The crew freezes, eyes locked on him. At 3:17 a.m., he snaps, "Fire!" 6 torpedoes launch, fanning across 1,500 yards at 30 knots. The control room is silent, only the hum of machinery and the tick of Enright's stopwatch. 45 seconds later, 4 massive explosions rock the sea, their shock waves vibrating through Archerfish's hull. Deep, thunderous, final. "We hit her," Klein breathed, his hand still on the firing panel. Enright orders a dive to 400 feet, bracing for depth charges. The crew waits, hearts pounding, but no counterattack comes. Only distant thumps, Shinano's secondary explosions, echo through the water, a requiem for a giant. Chaos on the Giant. Aboard Shinano, the world convulses. 4 torpedoes strike below her 13-inch armored belt at frames 165, 180, 195, and 210, tearing through hull plates into 3 boiler rooms and storage compartments. Each hit rips a 20-foot gash, flooding compartments with 2,000 tons of water per minute. Lights flicker, then die, plunging decks into darkness. Pumps stutter and fail, their motors untested. Steam lines rupture, scalding engineers. Captain Toshio Abe, 48, a veteran of destroyer commands, is new to Shinano, having taken command only weeks earlier. He trusts her armor, designed to withstand a dozen hits.
"Full speed to Kure," he orders from the bridge, aiming for shallow water 50 miles away. It's a fatal mistake. Speed forces water through unsealed bulkheads, flooding adjacent compartments like a breached dam. The crew, mostly untrained, scrambles in chaos. Of the 1,400 aboard, only 500 are trained sailors. The rest are recruits, yard workers, and mechanics, some still welding equipment as the ship sails. They stuff leaks with mattresses, wooden plugs, even clothing, their hands trembling in the cold. Wrenching untested watertight doors, they find fittings loose, rubber seals non-existent. No intercoms exist, orders travel by shouting or runners sprinting through tilting corridors. By 3:47 a.m., Shinano lists 5 degrees to starboard, her 70,000-ton mass tilting perceptibly. Damage control teams led by junior officers with no combat experience report boiler rooms abandoned, fires extinguished by flooding. Pumps, started manually, clog with debris or burn out, their circuits fried. Abe remains calm, assuring officers the ship is unsinkable. She was built for this, he says, citing design claims of surviving multiple torpedo strikes. The destroyers, Isokaze, Hamakaze, Yukikaze, circle a mile away in the dark, their radios crackling with confused reports. Their Type 13 radar is useless against a submerged target. Their sonar operators, mostly conscripts, miss Archerfish entirely. By 5 a.m., Shinano's list hits 10 degrees. Water sloshes through lower decks, mixing with fuel oil, creating a slick, toxic flood. Crewmen slip on steel floors, their tools useless against the deluge. Officers cling to the myth of invincibility, repeating assurances as water creeps upward through unsealed ventilation ducts. At dawn, 6:30 a.m., the list reaches 15 degrees. Sailors crowd the flight deck, clutching life vests, staring at the gray horizon. Abe refuses to abandon ship, fearing disgrace to the Navy and himself. He orders the destroyers to tow Shinano to shore, hoping to beach her in shallow water. The tow cables, rated for 10,000 tons, snap under her 70,000-ton weight, leaving the escorts helpless. By 9 a.m., the list passes 20 degrees. Decks tilt sharply, sending crates and 25mm gun mounts into the sea. Crewmen, some without vests, jump into the 50-degree Fahrenheit water, their screams swallowed by the wind. Below, hundreds are trapped in flooded compartments, escape hatches pinned shut by water pressure. At 10:18 a.m., Shinano rolls past 30 degrees, her massive flight deck dipping toward the waves. Abe, standing resolute on the bridge, finally orders, "Abandon ship." It's too late. At 10:57 a.m., Shinano capsizes stern first, her 13-inch armor useless against the sea's weight. The ocean closes over her in seconds, a whirlpool marking her grave at 33 degrees 7 minutes north, 137 degrees 4 minutes east, 600 feet deep. Of 2,400 aboard, only 1,180 are rescued by the destroyers, many hypothermic and oil-soaked. Abe goes down with his ship, his faith in her invincibility unbroken to the end. Seaman Hiroshi Tanaka, 19, one of the survivors, later recalls, "The water came faster than we could run. She groaned, then she was gone."
The submarine's escape and doubt. Archerfish remains submerged for hours, ears straining for the whine of destroyer propellers or the clatter of depth charges. None come. Shinano's escorts, hampered by inexperience and outdated equipment, fail to detect the sub. Only muffled explosions, fuel tanks and munitions detonating reach Archerfish, a grim confirmation of the kill. Enright surfaces at dawn, his crew exhausted but elated. He logs the attack, estimating a 40,000-ton carrier sunk with 4 confirmed hits. "She was huge," he writes in the patrol report. "The biggest thing I've ever seen." He radios Pearl Harbor, but analysts dismiss the claim. No carrier that size exists in their intelligence. The U.S. Navy's ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, lists Japan's largest carriers at 30,000 tons, half Shinano's displacement. The crew celebrates quietly, passing cigarettes in the control room. Torpedoman Robert Klein, wiping sweat from his brow, says, "Those hits shook us like thunder in the hull." Sonarman James Lanier adds,
Her escorts never hurt us. We were ghosts. Post-war, captured Japanese records reveal the truth. Shinano, 70,000 tons, the largest warship ever sunk by a submarine. Enright is awarded the Navy Cross, pinned on his chest in a Pearl Harbor ceremony. Archerfish receives a Presidential Unit Citation, her hull emblazoned with a new battle star. The crew learns Shinano's name only in September 1945, after Japan's surrender, when interrogations of Yokosuka officials confirm the kill. Japan's buried shame. In Tokyo, Shinano's loss is a gut punch to the Imperial General Staff. The Navy, already reeling from Leyte Gulf's devastation, cannot admit the catastrophe. Admirals suppress all reports, classifying Shinano's existence as top secret. Survivors, shivering on the decks of Isokaze and Hamakaze, are sworn to secrecy under threat of imprisonment or worse. The public won't learn of Shinano until August 1945, when Japan surrenders and Allied investigators uncover Yokosuka's records. Her 17-hour voyage, 6 p.m. November 28 to 10:57 a.m. November 29, is the Navy's shortest, costliest failure, a symbol of a war machine running on fumes. The loss exposes Japan's delusion. Shinano, meant to restore national pride, was a paper titan. Her rushed construction, untrained crew, and incomplete systems reflect a nation out of options. Admiral Shigetarmo Shimada, Navy Minister, reportedly wept when informed, muttering, "She was our last hope." The secrecy compounds the shame. Even surviving officers, like Lieutenant Yasuo Kato, are ordered to lie about their service, claiming they were on a transport. The Navy's silence buries Shinano's story, but it cannot hide the truth. Japan's naval power is a husk, its dreams of resurgence drowned off Tokyo Bay. The industrial chasm. Shinano's fate mirrors Japan's collapse. Her construction, begun in May 1940, took 4 years, draining steel, labor, and resources. Japan built 3 Yamato-class hulls, Yamato, Musashi, and Shinano, each a monument to pre-war ambition. America, by contrast, launched 24 Essex-class carriers, each 36,000 tons, in half the time, with 100 more under construction by 1944. U.S. shipyards churned out 2.6 million tons of shipping annually. Japan managed 600,000, barely replacing losses. Fuel shortages crippled Japan's fleet. America's refineries fueled constant operations, with 2 million barrels of oil delivered monthly to the Pacific Fleet.
Archerfish's 6 torpedoes, each 3,000 pounds, were products of an industrial juggernaut Japan couldn't match. The U.S. Navy's submarine force, just 2% of its personnel, sank 55% of Japan's merchant tonnage, 4.9 million tons, and 30% of its warships, 1,300 vessels. Below-class subs like Archerfish were engineered for lethality. 311 feet long, 27 feet wide, with 24 Mark 18 torpedoes, SJ radar, and a TDC that calculated firing solutions in seconds. Japan's I-400 submarines, innovative with their 3 aircraft, were too few, 3 built, and too late, entering service in 1945 when the war was lost. Shinano's 13-inch armor, designed for battleship duels, was irrelevant against a submarine she couldn't detect, her sonar half-installed and unmanned. Japan's industrial decline was stark. By 1944, steel production was 20% of America's, with 80% of Japan's output diverted to civilian needs. Shipyard workers, malnourished and overworked, made errors. Shinano's welds were brittle, her fittings substandard. The U.S. built 2.6 million trucks, 86,000 tanks, and 47 billion rounds of ammunition. Japan relied on 1.1 million horses for logistics. Shinano's rushed state, unwired intercoms, untested pumps, unsealed bulkheads, was a microcosm of a nation out of steel, oil, and time. Precision over power. Enright's attack was a masterclass in submarine warfare. 6 hours of stalking,
plotting Shinano's zigzags and waiting for the perfect shot, showcased U.S. training and technology. Shinano's escorts, hampered by inexperience and outdated Type 93 sonar, failed to detect Archerfish. Her own sonar, a Type O hydrophone, was half installed, its operators untrained. Enright's SJ radar tracked Shinano's 20-knot sprints. His TDC computed firing angles to within 1 degree. The Mark 18 torpedoes, electric and wakeless, left no bubble trail, giving Japanese lookouts no warning. 4 hits below the waterline at 20-foot intervals were enough. Shinano's unready crew did the rest. Japan's naval doctrine clung to battleship supremacy, believing size and armor ruled. Midway proved carriers were king. Submarines like Archerfish extended that shift. U.S. subs used code-breaking, ultra-intercepts, radar and wolfpack tactics, coordinating attacks via encrypted radio. By 1944, they sank 600 Japanese ships annually. Japan's anti-submarine measures, depth charges, Type 13 radar, were crude. Their destroyers often outmaneuvered. Shinano, a relic of pre-war thinking, was built for a decisive surface battle that never came. Her 145 25mm guns, meant for aircraft, were useless against a submerged foe. Enright's patience was key. He stalked Shinano from 12 miles, closing to 1,500 yards over 6 hours, surfacing only for 10-second periscope checks. His stopwatch decoded her 10-minute zigzags, predicting her 3 a.m. turn. The TDC, a mechanical computer, adjusted for Shinano's 20-knot speed and 5-degree course changes, ensuring the torpedoes' 30-knot paths intersected her hull. The attack was surgical, exploiting every weakness: poor escort coordination, incomplete sonar, and Shinano's rushed state. Japan's Navy, focused on grand fleets, underestimated the submarine threat, a fatal oversight. Voices from the night. The human stories of that night are vivid. Torpedo man Robert Klein, 26, recalls the strike. "The explosions shook us like thunder in the hull. We knew we'd hit something big, but had no idea how big." Sonarman James Lanyard, 22, says, "Her escort sonar was sloppy, pings all over, never locked on. We were ghosts." Enright's patrol log, declassified in 1946, is clinical but awestruck. Target was enormous, likely 40,000 tons. 4 confirmed hits, secondary explosions heard. Dove to 400 feet, no counterattack.
On Shinano, Seaman Hiroshi Tanaka, 19, survived by jumping from the flight deck. Quote, "Water poured in faster than we could run. The ship groaned like a dying beast. Then she was gone." Lieutenant Yasuo Kato, a damage control officer, wrote in a secret 1945 report, quote, "We stuffed leaks with anything, blankets, planks. The pumps failed in minutes. Captain A believed in her armor, but the sea didn't care." Abe's last order, scrawled in a surviving log, was defiant: "Proceed to Kure, she will hold." No photographs of Shinano underway exist, just blueprints, rusting in Yokosuka's archives, and survivors' haunted memories. The crew's inexperience was telling. Seaman Kenji Mori, 20, a welder-turned-sailor, recalled, "I'd never closed a watertight door before. The water came so fast we couldn't learn in time." Of the 1,320 lost, many were civilians, shipyard workers, trapped in lower compartments. Survivor testimonies, collected by Allied interrogators in 1945, paint a scene of chaos: shouts echoing in dark corridors, oil-soaked men clawing at sealed hatches, the ship's tilt turning ladders into slides. The end of the supership era. Shinano's sinking marked the twilight of the supership era. The Battle of Midway shifted naval warfare to carriers, submarines, and aircraft, rendering battleships obsolete. Shinano, designed as a battleship and converted to a carrier, was a hybrid of old and new, built for a war Japan no longer fought.
Her 13-inch armor, meant for 18-inch shell duels, was useless against torpedoes striking below the waterline. Her loss proved no ship was unsinkable, not the Titanic, not the Bismarck, and not Shinano. Armor couldn't compensate for unprepared crews or incomplete systems. The U.S. Navy's post-war carriers, like the USS Enterprise, CV-6, leaned on versatility, air wings of 90 planes, advanced radar, and 30-knot speeds. Nuclear submarines, starting with USS Nautilus in 1954, built on Archerfish's stealth tactics using sonar and wire-guided torpedoes. Japan's post-war Navy, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, JMSDF, adopted U.S. doctrine, prioritizing destroyers and frigates over heavy tonnage. By 1960, Japan's largest ships were 10,000-ton escorts, a far cry from Shinano's 70,000 tons. Shinano was meant to restore Japan's pride, a floating symbol of defiance. Instead, she became a warning. Overconfidence kills. Her 17-hour voyage was a microcosm of Japan's war, grand ambition undone by reality. The Imperial Navy's focus on size ignored the new realities of radar, code-breaking, and submarine warfare. Shinano's sinking was not just a loss of steel, but a death knell for Japan's naval dreams. The legacy of the silent kill. Archerfish's kill reshaped naval warfare. Submarines, once secondary, became hunter-killers, their roles cemented by this feat. The U.S. Navy's submarine campaign crippled Japan's economy, sinking 4.9 million tons of merchant shipping, 70% of its pre-war fleet, starving its war machine. By 1944, Japan imported only 10% of the oil needed for operations. U.S. subs sank 90% of its tankers. Shinano's loss taught a brutal lesson. No ship, no matter how grand, was immune to a well-placed strike. Enright, reflecting in a 1960 interview, said, "We didn't know her name until after the war. She was just a shadow, then she was gone." His crew's stories endure. Klein, promoted to chief torpedo man, told his grandchildren, "We fired 6 and prayed, 4 was enough." Lanier, who became a sonar instructor, recalled, "Their destroyers were blind. Our radar saw everything." On the Japanese side, Tanaka's 1946 letter to his family is haunting. "Shinano was our hope. When she sank, so did we." Lieutenant Kato, debriefed by allies, admitted, "We built a giant, but forgot to make her ready."
Shinano's blueprints, declassified in 1947, revealed a ship out of time. Her 336 rocket launchers meant for air defense were untested. Her 145 25mm guns, hand-loaded, were too slow for modern fighters. Her armor, while formidable, covered only 60% of her hull, leaving her lower compartments vulnerable. Allied analysts noted her design flaws. Excessive weight, 70,000 tons versus 36,000 for an Essex class, poor subdivision, only 20 watertight compartments versus 30 on U.S. carriers, and reliance on manual systems in an era of automation. The sinking was a pivot point. Japan's naval ambitions drowned 600 feet deep, while America's submarine force proved small, precise weapons could topple giants. The Pacific, once Japan's domain, belonged to the U.S. Navy, which by 1944 operated 6,000 ships to Japan's 400. Archerfish's attack, costing 6 torpedoes and 6 hours of patience, sank a 70,000-ton symbol of imperial hubris. Shinano's grave, unmarked off Tokyo Bay, is a silent testament to a lesson hard-learned. In war, precision outweighs pride. The human toll was stark. Of Shinano's 2,400 crew, 1,320 perished, 800 sailors, 520 civilians. Many drowned in flooded compartments, unable to reach escape hatches. Survivors like Tanaka
endured hours in freezing water, clinging to debris until Yukikaze pulled them aboard. The destroyers, carrying only 300 life vests between them, couldn't save everyone. Captain Abe's decision to steam at full speed, rooted in faith in Shinano's armor, doomed hundreds. His refusal to abandon ship until 10:18 a.m. reflected samurai tradition, but cost lives. For Archerfish's crew, the kill was a triumph tinged with awe. Enright, who retired as a captain in 1963, never boasted, saying only, "We did our job." Klein, who died in 1987, kept a torpedo schematic as a memento, showing it to his children with pride. Lanier, teaching sonar until 1970, credited the SJ radar. "It gave us eyes in the dark." Their victory was not just tactical, but psychological, proving a 1,500-ton sub could humble a 70,000-ton giant. Japan's Navy never recovered. By August 1945, its fleet was reduced to 50 warships, most immobilized by fuel shortages. The U.S. Navy, with 24 carriers and 180 submarines, dominated the Pacific. Shinano's sinking, though hidden, eroded morale among Japan's admirals, who knew the war was lost. The public, unaware until 1946, mourned a symbol they never saw. A new naval era. Shinano's loss closed the age of the supership. Post-war, navies pivoted to versatility. The USS Midway, 1945, at 45,000 tons, prioritized air wings, 130 planes, over armor. Nuclear submarines, like USS Nautilus, extended Archerfish's legacy, using stealth and precision. The JMSDF, formed in 1954, built 6,000-ton destroyers, not battleships, adopting U.S. tactics. NATO navies standardized on radar, sonar, and encrypted radios, ensuring interoperability. The sinking's lessons endure. No ship is invulnerable. Readiness and training trump tonnage. U.S. submarines, with 1.7% of the Navy manpower, accounted for 30% of Japan's naval losses, a disproportionate impact. Shinano's blueprints, studied by Allied engineers, informed post-war designs. More watertight compartments, automated damage control, lighter hulls. Today's Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, at 9,200 tons, rely on Aegis radar and missiles, not armor, echoing Archerfish's precision.